In the work that our human resources team is doing to really strengthen services and response time, they're executing a soft launch of the IIQ ticketing system for HR inquiries. This is about supporting our thriving team, strengthening customer service. This new system will enable us to gather customer service data, strengthen response times, accountability, and overall service to staff. We anticipate launching this process with the entire staff next month. So really want to thank the HR team for implementing this new feature, and to the tech operations and facilities teams who use it already and have demonstrated the effectiveness of this tool over the last few years. Also related to operational excellence, want to celebrate the finance team. We haven't heard much from finance. That's because the team is working diligently towards the audit. So we're heading into audit season on time. And for most of our finance team, this is the first formal audit they've experienced from their current position. So it's a big lift. Also grateful for the finance staff's dedication on audit reconciliations and then completing title reporting through the state's new gains system. And I want to just name that, when we often talk about the district office and the work we do here, and how that's shifted over many years, the gains system is a new launched this year, a system from CDE that tracks grants, spending, money. And although we used to do reporting, the gains system itself has created an incredible additional amount of work across our teams. And I just did a quick survey of staff, how many more hours because of this new system that CDE has implemented, which should streamline practices. But our lived experience right now is that our staff estimate this is taking it's an additional 240 staff hours than what we have ever done before on this sort of accounting. So when we talk about accounting systems being different than they were in the past, this is one small example, and that impact stretches across school finance, ACEs, our CLDE program, our Family Resource Center, and our admin team. It's a lot of staff time. And when we talk about why the DO is staffed the way we are, that's just one example. Also want to lift up, in terms of operational excellence, in September, this is a cool number, the Food and Nutritional Services Department reached a new benchmark of 93,000 meals served in a single month. This milestone reflects not only the continued number of students who rely on nutritious school meals each day, but also their enthusiasm for the evolving menu offerings. This increase also underscores the vital role our meal programs play in supporting student health, focus, and success, and the department's ongoing commitment to providing meals students truly enjoy is upheld every day by our dedicated kitchen staff members. And then finally, a celebration alignment to strategic priorities 1 and 2. Want to thank Basalt Elementary School, Carbondale Middle School, Roaring Fork High School, Bridges High School staff for hosting the first of the fall board director visits. There's a whole bunch more coming up, as you all are well aware. And so just want to share our gratitude for staff and leaders hosting the board directors and admin for these biannual school visits. We've gotten to look at school-specific student data, talk about school strategic plans and initiatives, and most importantly, get into classrooms. Really appreciate that the conversations, I think Dr. Park and I are lucky we get to go to all of these, and so we get to see them all. And the conversations thus far have really focused on our school priorities that are aligned to strategic priorities 1 and 2. We're talking about student engagement, rigorous instruction, school culture, family partnerships. So just really want to celebrate and lift up this work. It takes a lot of time, and it's also really important. So that's what we got. Thank you.
Great. The next business in order is the superintendent report, which will include a CLDE program review presentation from Amy Fairbanks, Director of the Culturally and Linguistically Diverse Education Department, and Dr. Park, and a presentation from Dr. Park on the district's Unified Improvement Plan.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We're going to start actually with the CLDE program review. Amy Fairbanks is here, our Director of CLDE, to present. We just had a lengthy work session on it, and so we have just the abbreviated first slides, and then I will skip over the other 70 slides to get to the UIP slides at the end. So I was a lot. Even though it says discussion after the CLDE presentation. We won't have a discussion until after I present on the UIP, if that's okay.
Thank you, everybody. All right. So this is the board policy, and I do want to thank you again. I already thanked you, but I'm going to thank you publicly now that for working on the culturally and linguistically diverse education board policy and how it brings to light all of the things that we've been doing before and making it endure in the future. So I really am thankful for that. And that board policy has asked us to come and share about our program models, our achievement data, on language proficiency data, annual results analysis, our summary of our district trends from our program reviews, and then our district-wide action plans for the future. So here we go. All right. So our CLD programming has bilingual education in different kinds of forms, and also English programs that use Spanish as a leverage, but maybe not have an instructional time for Spanish in those English programs. We have dual language at VES and Riverview School, and we have Spanish literacy or Spanish language arts in English at some of our other schools, like at GSES, are working on implementing a biliteracy program in English and Spanish where all the students learn literacy in both languages. And we're here today, so that's exciting. And then we have literacy-based ELD and SLA at those schools, as noted in the slide deck, along with literacy-based ELD specific at those schools. Our program doesn't just stop with literacy-based ELD or with Spanish literacy and English language arts together, but it goes to the rest of the day. So everybody is actually part of the CLDE department, and the rest of the day in our English programs is in English, but they use a translanguaging pedagogy to leverage students' languages to help access academic content and discourse and engage in reading difficult texts, right? And then the rest of the day for our dual language is a 50-50. So they are learning Spanish and English in all the content areas in heterogeneous mixed groups. And that needs to be corrected to 11 schools. We have CLDE coaches in 11 schools. Our access data this year was excellent. We had for our district, we had an overall of 57 median growth percentile. The goal is always 50 or 51. And then this is the breakdown of the grade levels and what their median growth percentile was. And as you can see, there's a 5th grade there that says 44. And we already have a plan and a team in place to address that through collective efficacy. We're going to work on that issue. And then over time, you can see our schools and how they performed with the access test and the median growth percentiles over time. And they continue to just amaze me. To get over 50 that many times in a row, let alone be in the blue at 60 or above, is quite an accomplishment. So I want to show what kind of accomplishment that is. When we compare our district with like districts with similar numbers of emerging bilingual students with growth scores, you know, we have 1,067 students that had growth scores, and we got 57 median growth percentile compared to other districts that have about 1,000 students and what their median growth percentiles were. It's also important to look at percentage of students who are emerging bilingual students. So when we compare with like districts with similar percentages of emerging bilingual students, we are really outperforming those similar districts with similar percentages by 4 median growth percentiles or more. So that is a testament to the dedication of our principals, our APs, our CLD coaches, our teachers in the CLDE department, and all general ed staff for prioritizing the needs of emerging bilingual students when they have them in their classes. And this isn't just a fluke. It happens, it's been happening for quite some time. So in 2013, of all the districts in Colorado, we had the highest median growth percentile score was 67. But with similar districts with similar numbers, there were 19 districts with similar numbers, and we were number one of all of them. So you can see the ratio, the number of districts that were similar to us and where we ranked. So we've always ranked between 1 and 3 of similar districts with similar numbers and percentages. That's just relentless consistency on the part of everyone involved. And it has been an honor to work with everyone. So now how do we jump 70 slides?
Well, is that the last
Or
one?
is there a little more? Oh, yeah. So we have some trends. We do annual CLD program reviews. And a trend that we saw in all of the schools based on their data, dialogues, and comparing their strengths and recommendations with the common components. The highest leverage move that came up that was very common across the schools was using the 4-step process to help provide targeted feedback to students on their writing to help them move to the next zone of language development. And we also want to strengthen coaching in the content areas. That's the rest of the day. And also, so that's what they want to dedicate their time to. And for the CLDE department, we want to dedicate our time to the strategic priority number 2, which is the RFSD daily lesson design that centers the needs of emerging bilingual students. So that's what we're really focusing on when we meet as a department. And now I have to skip all the slides.
Jonathan, are you able to? Yeah, can you go to skip to slide 61, please?
Oh, it was close to
It's
60.
close.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm here to present our district unified improvement plan. And you have a copy of the draft that was a PDF from of the UIP. But one thing I do want to make sure I mention for both the board and the audience is that the UIP is intended not to be that different from a district strategic plan. And so just want to make sure that that's clear. But a celebration that we shared last month was that as a district, we earned a rating of performance for 2025, and we had submitted a full UIP last year, which meant that as a district, we were eligible for biennial flexibility. And there is, so I actually put our image of our strategic plan there just to make sure folks connect that these are related, very related things, even if it doesn't include operational excellence and thriving team. And the UIP focuses primarily on the academic growth and outcomes. So it really is aligned to strategic priority 1, students first, and strategic priority 2, rigorous learning for all, and the initiatives there as well. Our prioritized student performance areas are these that are listed above. What isn't actually on this slide, but is outlined in the UIP is, for the student groups that are a focus, our student attendance is one of those evergreen sort of priorities because it is still not where we want it to be. And I don't want to lose that as something that we're continuing to focus on. Primarily our students of color in the high school grades, even though all grades and all schools are working to improve their attendance. Our math growth on CMAS and PSAT, we really are focusing on our groups, our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, our emerging bilingual students, our students with disabilities, and our Hispanic and Latino students. We saw that just in the data that was shared a couple board meetings ago when we shared our results from the spring. And then similarly on ELA and EBRW, the evidence-based reading and writing on both CMAS and PSAT, and then of course, elementary early literacy achievement. And again, those subgroup performance is where we really want to make sure that we are elevating and improving achievement there. This is outlined in the UIP as well, but when we think about the root causes, they are again, very similar to what we had identified previously, both in the attendance, when we think about the student sense of belonging and meaningful representation, time it takes actually for lasting culture change, takes time, especially if when we think about attendance and our wraparound supports for supporting students, we have reestablished and re-upped that plan. For our academic markers, math growth, ELA growth, and elementary early literacy achievement, Root causes included just equitable access to grade level content, and that is across as we're thinking about on the day-to-day basis, how we're planning for it. One of our strategies of our instructional coaching systems with accountability is also one of the key strategies here, which I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Here it is. Yes. And these initiatives, which are outlined within strategic priority 2, are specifically intended to address what we believe to be the root causes. And again, in close collaboration with our development of the 5-year strategic plan. And so you can see these major improvement strategies listed there as well. The detailed data is included in both the memo from the previous meeting with all the disaggregated information. And this is really more of the high level and the mission measures, where I hope I clearly in the purple showed what our actual results were and what we our year 2 goals and our year 3 goals, adjusted for where we had set a goal and what we actually ended up with. And so adjusting that a little bit, both to still be ambitious, but more attainable than may have been previously. So that is there as well. You can see that for CMAS, math, and ERW for early literacy, and for PSAT growth and goals there. And I guess there's not a there is a discussion.
Thank you. Each board member will now have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions, and we will begin with Catherine.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions on the CLDE presentation. The board dove into this for about 3 hours already tonight in work sessions, so we've aired out, I think, most of our questions. So thank you, Amy, for indulging us and for being there with us and getting through that. On our UIP, I'm grateful for this presentation. I'm really grateful for slides 65, 66, 67, 68. I think it's super important for us to continue to say out loud our goals and where we are. I'm curious about how this is being communicated out to SACs, to schools. We heard from the DAC, I think, last meeting on this. So is there any further plan beyond this presentation here to communicate out to our communities about this and the importance of our UIP and relating it to our strategic plan that we're constantly trying to elevate?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. We have a strategic leadership meeting next week where I think it's timely to discuss that, because our UIP is actually due for public posting October 15th. And so we're bringing it to the session to get questions and feedback from the board. But that's a great push that we'll certainly discuss on how to make sure that it gets to key people, and actually that we're outwardly communicating that out as well, especially the connection between a plan, our district dashboard, where we are here, even potentially sharing something like this table out, which I think is a little easier to read all at once. Yep.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. That's all I had.
Lindsay?
Sure. Once again, just appreciation for the time tonight, Amy, and also staff, of course. It's a long evening. The CLDE discussion was very thorough. I just wanted to elevate a few things that I took away personally from that, just for the public. One is that we are kind of in the first year really of the major changes implemented by policy IHBEA, the update that we did, which includes an annual update on the CLDE program. And I think that that's critical going forward to increase transparency and just accountability. Amy, you mentioned appreciation that you were going to be able to speak directly to us on those issues. And so I just wanted to make sure that community hears, like, we really value that and the time that it's going to take us and also staff to present that forward. And I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the push from staff on that issue to be really intentional about our language when we're discussing gaps in performance, and make sure that we don't always just equate ethnicity and cultural heritage with this gap. It's a language proficiency issue that's really complex and can be easily oversimplified, which doesn't serve us in actually solving that problem. And so I just really appreciate that there is a challenge in front of us to make sure that we're being intentional, not just how we use the words, but how we are solving that problem, and without diminishing the urgency behind it. And I think that by being specific in how we address that achievement gap, we're going to find our resources can be directed more strategically if we're careful, even just how we talk about it publicly and between ourselves. So thank you for that. And then again, just for the public, the board, really deeply believes in finding the best fit of program and school to reach the needs of all of our learners, and that this is just one more big change that we've made in the past few years and that we're looking forward to continuing. So sorry for the summary, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Kenny?
I would like to start by thanking Chief Fairbanks for all of the work and the legwork to get us ready for our meeting today, and to congratulate you on the great access growth that you have shown throughout all these years. Is very remarkable, our district and our access growth. At the same time, though, I feel it's important to bring up, while we're having great access growth and English language growth, our academic success for our second language learners, our multilingual learners, continues to lag behind and hasn't shown the same bump that has been shown in the access growth. And I think it is important and necessary that we continue to practice research-based, best practice, data-driven research. And studies and meta studies continue to show that bilingual education is the best research-based instruction when possible, with the type of populations to support that. And so I think we need to continue as a district to make sure that we are pushing in that direction, and that Dr. Park, you had said equitable access to grade level content is the key, and I agree. And especially at the K1 levels, we need to make sure that we are giving comprehensible input to our learners. So if there's a non-English proficient student in kindergarten or first grade, that they are receiving input that they are able to access the majority of their day, and not sitting there in a place where they are not receiving the academic needs that they need to continue to grow. And I think that is a big push that we need to make sure that we continue to move towards. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have too many questions because we had such a robust discussion for the last several hours, but I'm really grateful for your time and preparing for the conversation tonight, and then for sticking through it. And I did have one question that comes from a place of not knowing these systems as well. And as I get up to speed, I wonder, and this might be more for Dr. Park, but for either of you, can you help kind of connect the dot between the CLDE programming and the results we talked about tonight, and the data we talked about tonight, and the achievement gap? Because that we often talk about as a board, because I know those are not the exact same things. And I think sometimes in the community, it might be equated as being the same thing. Do you mind just kind of explaining that?
Just so I understand the question, you mean the difference between how a student is progressing in language and academic achievement?
Often when we talk about the achievement gap in this setting, we're talking
Mhm.
about the difference between Anglo and Latino students. And also, we know that the CLDE programming is like, there's more Latino students than just those in the CLDE programming, of course. And so can you just kind of connect the dots between those two?
Sure. Do you want me to go for it? Okay.
You can go for it.
Yeah. That's great. So I think when we're talking about a gap in performance between Hispanic and Latino students and white students, you're right. Within the broader category of Hispanic and Latino students, there are students in there who range from non-English proficient all the way to they've only ever spoken English, monolingual English. So when we categorize that as a monolith, it's actually grossly inaccurate, because there's a wide range of English language acquisition within that group. And so what we do need to consider is when we are comparing quote like population, when we're doing it by language, it should be where a student is who is a language learner is as close to English proficiency as a native English speaker might be. And that's after multiple years in the program, former ELL, potentially monitor 1, monitor 2 status as well. And so I think we all know, and I've said this, previously in meetings where we're looking at a non-English proficient student taking an assessment that's 100% in English. we would not expect them to perform at the exact same level as a monolingual English speaker or native English speaker. And so we do need to look at, as they're acquiring English, are they improving in their academic achievement on English tests?
And their proficiency level lets us know whether or not the student has meaningful access to show us what they can do on what I would call a culturally and linguistically biased assessment. So when we look at data, we must consider the student's language proficiency level. And like, Dr. Park said, not group them all in one and say all of them are doing this.
Because they're not, if we say all other things equal, that actually is a major factor that's not equal.
It's not
in
equal
your
at all.
test, so.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Parks, sorry. Did I use my time, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Oh, great. One quick question on the UIP. I'm just curious why we, even though you had the option to not do a heavy and probably time-consuming state compliance report, we chose to do that.
It's a great question. I think a couple of factors. I personally think it's actually really hard to update a plan every 2 years. Like we forget things in context. So I think it is helpful to go through that exercise. And I'm imagining October 2026 or August, September 2026. And I've been in that place before. It's not fun. So I think that's part of it. And also I think it's a helpful check and all of our inner systems with our strategic plan to see how is everything aligned. Again, the UIP is intended to be the strategic plan for a district. And it was a good check for that.
Okay, thank you. We will now have 5 minutes for open discussion. Does anyone have anything else?
Just as one follow-up, Dr. Park, you were just mentioning that language learner will have a more difficult time accessing assessments at the same way of being able to take in information as somebody who is fully English proficient. And I think that's just something very important for us to recognize, and as we look at programming, to make sure that we're taking into account, because that is the same instance in which, not as an assessment form, but when a newcomer to the English language is in a classroom where the instruction is all in English, that the amount that they are taking in and are being able to process is very different, and that is a hindrance in their being able to get upon level. And so we need to make sure that we are doing something with our programming that will allow those students to have that comprehensible input. And I know the lesson design that we're talking about is one of those ways, but we need to make sure that native language literacy and native language instruction to be able to increase that academic success is also something that we're looking at implementing in a broad stroke also.
Okay, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye. Thanks, Amy.
We're fine.
Oh. Okay, I'm not there yet. I'm sorry. That's okay. I think out of time. Okay. At this time, we welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There are 0 speakers signed up tonight. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may always do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we have received 0 written comments. Sorry, I'm new.
Great.
Okay, The next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel, minutes from our previous board meeting, policies BID/BIE, KDB, KLG, regulation KLGR, and a required resolution for the board stipend change included in policy BID/BIE. Additionally, a separate vote will be conducted for the board resolution in support of ballot initiative 7A, with Director Ramirez abstaining due to a conflict of interest. Directors, are there any other items you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Kohlenberg,
Aye.
Director Teitler.
Aye.
Vote for 7A.
Next.
Okay. Ballot initiative 7A board resolution has been pulled for separate discussion and vote. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions, and we will begin with Lindsay.
Vote for 7A. No, I appreciated the time last week, last meeting that we had from the folks that came to talk about these and how important it is. I think we covered all of the issues. I'm glad to see it brought back to the next board meeting. I'm excited to vote for it. And I think it's a great investment to support students from a local source in those key years when they really need to be able to learn and grow in a healthy environment. And we know that our region struggles tremendously to provide a lot of supports those types to families that have young children. So again, I'm just glad to see this back and excited to vote yes.
Kenny?
I would also highly support anybody to vote for 7A. I think it's very important that we have students coming into our classrooms ready to learn, and having had a school experience in my previous comment about kids in kindergarten and first grade who are struggling with language, who are coming in as non-English proficient students, who are having a hard time understanding what is being talked about, told in their classroom, what is they're supposed to do. Having a preschool experience would be amazing for these children to be able to come in with language, to start at a level that is beyond zero for language would be an incredible boost for those students and for all students. Research shows that the amount of vocabulary that a child has been spoken to in their infancy is directly correlated to how well they perform in later schooling. And the ability for many students to have that is limited when they are not in preschool. So this preschool experience gives a experience where children are able to be speaking, listening, singing songs, being part of group dynamics, learning rules about how to get along with others that can't be replicated in other ways, and the ability that this will offer students to be able to have that experience by having funding for both parents and programming and additional slots can't be emphasized of how important it is for our population. So yes, please, please, please vote yes on 7A.
Catherine?
Before I start, I make a motion that we approve the resolution in support of 7A.
Did I miss that?
It wasn't in there, but we should do that before I discuss. So if you wanna, somebody second?
I second.
Okay, now I'll go into my comments. Now, if we have any amendments, we can amend. I've been very vocal about my support for 7A. I was grateful for the time to have this discussion last week. And I'm grateful for the team that is pushing this and elevating it into the common discourse and relating it explicitly to education. As I shared last night in my candidate forum, I think that when we're talking about education and some of the major challenges that we have, early childhood education is imperative. And 7A is a local sustainable solution that's going to allow us to address it and make early childhood education more accessible for more children in our valley. So I'm a huge supporter. I would urge all voters, 1, to vote yes on 7A, and 2, to get to know the people who are on the ballot to sit on the board, and to make a plan to vote on who best represents them within their geographical district, because I think that's a really important process, or next step in this process, but it's really a step that's happening at the same time. And we can't let that get lost in these conversations. So thank you for being here again tonight. Thank you for the presentation at our last board meeting, and you have my wholehearted support. You had the support of every BOE candidate that was on the stage last night for early childhood education. And I think that's important to know. This is a common goal for everyone across spectrums. And we all just need to do what's right for kids. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for showing back up. I apologize that my absence last week, I think required, or a few of us weren't here. You weren't here too, right? Anyway, because there was no quorum, you had to come back. So I apologize for my role in that. I do have a question, maybe for Dr. Cole. Because we are a declining enrollment school district, I assume we are also a declining enrollment early childhood land. And so do you know the plan or like, are there projections in 7A about how long this tax will be needed? And if we're declining as much as we fear, is that going to have a material impact on this?
You know, I can only speak to our our enrollment in terms of preschool. And I would say that right now, we are limited in preschool enrollment, not because of kids, but because of staff and space. And so I actually think because we only serve a small population of students as compared to the whole that we could, like we have many more kids coming at kindergarten than were in our 4-year-old classrooms. Part of that's because there's other programs and there's there's a lot of choice in terms of preschool and environments, but right now I wouldn't say we're seeing metrics of declining enrollment in preschool. We see other challenges in terms of access, finance, transportation, schedules, those sorts of things. So I don't know that we see necessarily a correlation between 7A and declining enrollment, but I don't know the extent to which the coalition has thought through the impacts of if the region, Aspen to Parachute sees that. But I will name that declining enrollment, the ballot initiative is covering a region from Aspen to Parachute, and only Aspen to Glenwood school districts have projected declining enrollment. Western Garfield does not have that demographic projection that we do. So I think when you look more holistically, those trends that we're seeing in Valley and in Aspen are not similar in Western Garfield. Does that help?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And if Maggie, I missed anything, shoot us an email. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, we should now call the vote.
Yes, for any intervening motions to amend.
Are there any intervening motions to amend? Hearing none, should we call the vote? Please.
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kronenberg, Director Titler.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution passes.
Director Ramirez has joined the meeting. She'll be a panelist in the meeting.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The next business in order is discussion on policies AED, CBB, CF, and CH. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions, and we will begin with Kenny.
I only have one question on policy CH, policy implementation. It says the superintendent, and this is something that Director Kuhlenberg had flagged to in there. It said that the superintendent will involve as appropriate at the planning stage those who would be affected by such rule, including staff members, students, parents, and the public. And my question, I guess, is how is it that we do this? I know through the Equity Advisory Council, sometimes that has been brought up, but I've not really seen that as a wholehearted thing. We have policy, we bring it out for input and get that input back to us. How is it that we're hoping to achieve that?
It depends on the policy. I would say when it comes to getting parents, family, student input, we really leverage the Family Advisory Council, Equity Advisory Council for that kind of input. For example, last year, the dress code policy was worked on extensively by those teams months in advance of when you saw your first draft. I would say when there are what typically happens is when we're planning the policy agenda, Jonathan Landon and I will go through the list of what's coming up for different reasons, and then we'll distribute those policies among senior leaders who need to provide an initial review, and then they'll either take those to their teams if we need to get leader input. Dr. Park regularly brings policies to school leaders. They're in a weekly update to school leaders, they're seeing all of them. So there's that opportunity for them to see what's going on. And then we have more dedicated time depending on the policy. So we added in the language the as appropriate because that is definitely how it's working right now. So we do not take every policy to all impacted parties. I think that would become my full-time job if that's what we were doing. But we do have targeted input for different groups. Depending on the policy and the extent of the changes, to be quite honest. So when they're not substantial, we definitely don't go through a big public review process. Did I miss anything?
So I guess, yes, that as appropriate, I guess, makes that I'm trying to see where that says.
Would it help if I provided context to why I
Yeah.
suggested that? I suggested that qualifier because this is specifically in relation to regulations, not policy. So policy, we do have a policy on creating policy that includes a requirement to engage with stakeholders in the creation of policy, but this is policy implementation, which is controlled by regulations. Some regulations come before the board, other regulations are more internal. And so it didn't feel appropriate to say that on every regulation that was created, all of those stakeholders had to be engaged. That seems like a professional decision of the superintendent to
Mhm.
determine when people need to be engaged on the implementation of policy in the form of a regulation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I missed that distinction. Yeah. I would say even less so on regulations or more so depending on
Depending on.
depending
Like
on
the
it.
Very detailed, intensive regulations.
Yes.
We've had many discussions on.
Yes.
And just the last thing is like through this policy and then in some, I think it was in the UIP discussion too, there was just that part about bringing it back to our constituents in ways. And it just seems like that's something that is hard to do and to get that feedback and that input. And it's something that I guess, I just think the way it's written, but I guess that as appropriate satisfies me. So never mind.
And I would actually say there's two ways we do this. And I think I've got two examples very recently that are helpful. Sometimes we go out specifically to stakeholders and families and students and say, hey, can you give us some feedback on this? We also are very intentional to create spaces, which I would name as Family Advisory Council, Equity Advisory Council, where we are saying to families and saying to kids and faculty, what matters to you?
Mm-hmm.
And let's work on it. So for example, when we just launched the Family Advisory Council a couple of weeks ago, that team decides their agenda and what they want to work on. And this year, they identified a number of protocols and regulations related to student discipline and safety. We weren't going to go bring those protocols or regulations out to families, but because they want to work on them, we've created the space where they know they can say, we want to talk about this protocol, let's talk about it. So we're getting input when parents and families tell us that they want to work on stuff. Similarly, at Equity Advisory Council, we talked to students, we looked at policy ADB, we said, what are kind of related issues you want to talk about this year? And they said, we want to work on attendance practices and how you're what the regulations are around attendance and how that aligns with equity initiatives. That wasn't on our list to bring to the kids. They lifted it up and we're going to work on it. So I would say it's two-way communication, both being deliberate to share things out and also create spaces where people can bring issues to us. And I think that's working.
Thank you.
Great. Jasmine, are you on and wanting to use your 2 minutes?
Sure. Thank you, team. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
Okay, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there tonight. Thank you, Director After, for being able to step in. I didn't really have any questions aside from a follow-up on CF. I went through some of the questions and I just wanted to have clarification on just the conversation around the addition of like the short range cultural and academic objectives, and then also some of the questions in regards to the principal being responsible for the development and management of a comprehensive education program in their school. And also the fact that we're saying principals will rigorously monitor and modify the program to ensure the students meet. I wondered if there was any space to add anything aligned to our data-driven culture in here, and also wanted to just hear feedback on that conversation on those additions.
I can take it. I think the part of the cultural and academic objectives, you can see that was a recommendation from Executive Director of Schools, Joel Hathaway. I think it was really to lift up that our theory of action is that principals and school administrators need to hold both, that it is academic and cultural and that they work together, and our school culture, sorry. Yes, school culture, like school norms and practices.
Discipline.
Yes. So that was really where that came from. And I would say trying to think the other part of the conversation you were asking about. Development and management, ongoing monitoring, I think was really just about the day-to-day, what lived experience of that sometimes they're starting things up. I don't remember any specific. I don't know, Director Kuhlenberg, I'm looking at your comment on that. If there's anything you recall from that conversation that would help.
No, I don't.
I would say this is referencing to your point, it's like approving curriculum and things like that. This is more like, have we created the schedules or the staffing and the classes that will make sure that our programs are running? It isn't, and perhaps this is actually helpful to clarify within this policy itself, where they will independently for every single aspect of the program, like adopt just different curriculum.
You did that.
Oh, I did do that.
Yeah,
didn't
with
I?
the preamble to that sentence. We put in that clause at the beginning of that sentence that clarifies that.
Great. So we don't need to put it
Yeah,
there.
we checked that off.
Okay, well then I would just encourage the team to maybe consider, I mean, like is this Catherine, I'm sorry, Director Kuhlenberg, as part of the district standards? Is that what you guys added?
Yeah, I made the comment about it seeming odd to me since curriculum, there were things that must be approved, right? Or there are things that must be approved. And the principal must work within the strictures of the board calendar, of district approved curriculum, all those things. And so it felt to me like we had to have that qualifying clause at the beginning of the sentence.
Okay, I personally, I feel like that's still a little muddy. Like I would not have understood that was, or I'm sorry, I did not understand that was specific to like the everyday. So I would appreciate a little bit more clarity on that. Like, but maybe I'm just needing to read this a couple more times. But I had no other questions aside from pointing that section out on the CF policy.
Great, thank you. Catherine?
I didn't have anything else. I think you guys can see where I made notes during policy committee. We had a efficient, I think it was a pretty efficient policy committee because these are mostly minor changes, but everything that I flagged has been addressed.
Great, thanks. Lindsay?
Same, I got to participate in policy committee, so appreciate the notes that Catherine and others have made.
Great. I don't have any further questions or comments either. Directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion. Hearing none. Okay. Thank you very much. Did I miss something?
No.
Nope.
I think I'm.
It's okay. That's fine. All right, the next business in order is approval of the district UIP. Do I have a motion to approve the district UIP?
I move that the board approve the district UIP as presented.
I second.
We have already had a presentation by Dr. Park, and we've already had 2 minutes of discussion and 5 minutes of open discussion. Are there any intervening motions to amend? Okay. Can you please call the vote?
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Tyler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Great. Come on up.
No, should be.
The next business in order is approval of the Glenwood Springs Elementary School Unified Improvement Plan. Do I have a motion to approve the Glenwood Springs Elementary School Unified Improvement Plan?
I move that the board approve the Glenwood Springs Elementary School Unified Improvement Plan as presented.
I second.
Thank you. We'll now have a brief presentation by the Glenwood Springs Elementary School Unified Improvement. Oh, sorry. We will now have a brief presentation of the Glenwood Springs Elementary School Unified Improvement Plan by GSCS Principal Laura Smith, GSCS Assistant Principal Courtney Rangel, and Dr. Park. Okay.
Take it on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Laura Smith. I'm the principal. Yeah. I'm Laura Smith, the principal. And I'm Courtney Van Hal, the assistant principal at GSES. We'll get us started about our mission and vision. I know we're here to present our UIP, but this is also part of what we aspire and really embodies the work that we do here at GSES. So our vision is we nurture a joyful learning community where every child belongs and is inspired to take risks, develop their greatest potential. And our mission here at GSES, we empower every child to become compassionate, critical thinkers through challenging academics, supportive relationships, bilingual opportunities, and a spirit of adventure. And this was something we worked really hard on last school year and in order to represent our current programming and also new staff that became a part of our school. Great. I'm going to just give a voiceover this slide. Reflecting on last year, we slipped into priority improvement from previously being an improvement for 2 years. We can see here that we did not meet expectations for ELA academic achievement or math academic growth. And we are celebrating that we maintained our academic growth in ELA and our math achievement, and really celebrating our access growth for 2 consecutive years of meeting and exceeding even the district performance there. So Now I'll talk a little about how we developed our UIP, similar to what Dr. Park was explaining earlier with the district UIP. We drafted this in collaboration with our school design team, which is instructional leaders from each team represented in our school. We then took that feedback and refined it with our smaller leadership team. And we consulted with the CDE Turnaround Network to get their feedback and input. And then we most recently took that to our Family Advisory Board to hear what they think we should be doing and how they can support. And Courtney is going to share a little more about that meeting that happened on. Yes, I am not allowed. Yes. Okay, perfect. And Courtney is going to talk about our Family Advisory Board meeting, which is our school accountability. We just had so many SAC acronyms that we changed ours a little. So she'll talk about that.
All right, so as Laura mentioned, I'm just going to jump to the next slide here. Okay, we had our Family Advisory Board on September 23rd. And that's where we walk them through our unified improvement plan that included our major improvement strategies. We used what we call a boxing protocol. So that really allowed families to hear. We presented on each major improvement strategy, and then there was table discussion and an opportunity to give feedback. Some people were asking really good questions, and they really provided the family perspective that we were looking for to go back into our plan and give us guidance on how else to move forward. So in the end, I know it's not very visible, but I will show you in the next slide. You can see we had asked them to come up with a gist statement. Okay, we've just presented all of our major improvement strategies. We shared our data, where we're going. And if we go to the next slide, you can read some of their headlines that they came up with. I'll read just one of them because I really think it does embody what we're working towards this year. GSES strives to strengthen its academic community with data-driven collaboration, focusing on skill mastery, consistent expectations, and a great culture.
All right. An important piece of this is to look at what are our major student performance priorities. And we identified those as early literacy performance, similar to the district, having students reading at benchmark or above, addressing the widening gap for our third, fourth, and fifth grade student achievement in literacy and math, and addressing the low growth we're seeing in our third through fifth grade literacy and math scores. So when we dig into why we think those things are happening, when we think about early literacy achievement, we associate that with the inconsistent implementation of Tier 1 best practices in literacy instruction and a high staff turnover. And this isn't in there, but we also did not have a CLDE coach last year. And so that is part of the puzzle here too. When we think about our widening gaps in achievement in grades 3 through 5, we identified some of our reasoning behind that is lack of consistent evidence-based practices consistently understood and implemented by all of our teachers and all of the content. Inconsistent feedback for teachers on instructional practices, and that was partially due to a lack of having a coach last year, which we do this year, so that's exciting. And the root cause for low growth across students for literacy and math, we relate that to lack of systems for teachers, interventionists, and coaches to regularly look at data together, a lack of needing to create plans to remediate or accelerate learning based on data, and a lack of clear structures to facilitate staff collaboration, which had an impact on outcomes. Right.
Okay. I'll walk us through some of our major improvement strategies to address these priority improvements and root causes, starting with we call MIS1, our major improvement strategy around school culture. This continues from our work from last year, which was deepening student, staff, and community sense of belonging and joy. And this year really honing in on our rituals and routines. Also instructional practices, our MIS do. How can we increase planning, intentionality, use of student engagement strategies to improve access to grade level curricula to support all students and similar to the district, especially our emerging bilingual students. And also really honing in on our data practices. We need to establish systems for data teams to consistently meet and analyze student work, benchmark data, and make those key adjustments to instruction to positively impact academics, behavior, and attendance. And I can share a little bit more of what we're doing now. And it actually feels like good to, as we're going through this, like a lot of this we already have in place. For instance, for our school culture, we're building school-wide structures to support students, kind of making the implicit very explicit around expectations and support, positive recognitions for students as well. As far as instructional practices, digging in and really being thoughtful about using our early release Wednesday time to design professional learning that does center around collaborative interaction and make sure students are talking and interacting and using the target language. Unpacking language proficiency levels with our teachers. As mentioned earlier, we can't lump language proficiency all together in one, and making sure that we have the appropriate scaffolds required to access content, being thoughtful to not over scaffold and just providing that right amount. And also our data practices. We now have a common data analysis protocol. We're facilitating with our instructional coach weekly data meetings across all teams and content areas. So there's a solid goal, action steps, and a plan on how to implement. Great. So our next steps are to incorporate any feedback and revisions to the submitted UIP. And then we're excited to continue this work with our Family Advisory Board. We had a good turnout and they seem real excited to dig in and help us work through this. So we're excited about that. And there's a lot more details outlined in all the other documents that were shared with you all, but that's kind of the high leverage overview of what we're doing.
Great, thank you so much. We will now have 2-minute discussion for each board member and then 5 minutes of open discussion. Lindsay, will you please start? Sure.
Thanks for taking the time to come and talk to us tonight. It's really nice to hear from you. It's nice to see new roles and getting settled and taking, this building that's been through a lot in the last few years in a direction that you believe in. And I really appreciated the photos from your Family Advisory Board conversation. And I just had a question. How many folks attend that meeting or regularly, or could you maybe just tell me a little bit about the makeup of that board?
Yes, I can share a little bit more. Let me just grab our data here that we had on that.
Mostly just wondering, we always try to do a plug for more participation in those in the community level, and I wasn't sure where yours was in the.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we had a total of 9 families. And when we look closely at how they represent in comparison to our school, we did 56% represent our Latinx community, 44% were white. We had concurrent interpretation as well. And so if we were wondering if it was more of a consistent from our last year, we're working to build it up. Something we asked our teachers was give us some names. We invite everyone always, and we blast our social medias, but we also wanted to include some extra personal invites, and teachers did that as well.
And then, oh shoot, I forgot my next question because I didn't write it down.
You can, if you remember it, you can use it.
Yeah, it'll come back to me. I just
Sure.
appreciate that you guys are here tonight. And yeah, I know what it was. What do you need from us? Like as a board, what do you wish we knew, or what were we doing for you right now?
That's a great question.
Can't think of anything right now. We have felt supported through the process of onboarding us, and we felt the support from our district folks, and thanks for being there. If we need you, we'll definitely reach out.
In regards to what to know, I think it's important to know we have such a hardworking, dedicated staff. We've got the right people on the bus, And so we're eager for this year we're just ready. And so I think that's important to know what talented folks we have at GSES.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Kenny?
Thank you for being here and presenting, and thank you for your hard work and your staff's hard work of moving forward and getting to where you want to be. I have a couple questions for you. On your root causes of low early literacy achievement, you said tier 1 best practices for literacy instruction is one of the reasons. Can you tell me what you all consider your best practice for literacy instruction?
Sure, I can speak a little more to that. And I think it's what we would identify as inconsistent best practice. The school district, we have like a vision of excellence, both for our Spanish literacy classrooms, because we are biliteracy, and English literacy. And so as we're digging into it, and that's actually something we did this year, it's inconsistent what we're seeing. So making sure we're bringing up practices. So it's not happening in specific classrooms, but we can say it's happening across the board in each grade level. So that was one thing we want to lift up are some of the best practices and making sure we're aligned on what it means when we say small group targeted instruction so that's.
And can you tell me specifically, like, what are 2 or 3 of those best practices?
Sure. Well, one thing in particular, I would say identifying lagging skills and making sure that we're teaching to the specific skills in small group and being able to assess what they're missing and then moving on to the next thing rather than maybe going through the motions and being really targeted in that. So that's one thing we're getting close on through our data practices.
Another that we've talked about, in our observations as well is, for example, if you're having phonics instruction and you are practicing the sound, but not actually confirming that every student is getting the practice and doing that, but moving on. So that's one of the things where we do need to make sure kids are actually saying all the words, saying it correctly, doing whatever the action is, if it's blending or decoding. And that was something that was inconsistent, or the time in text or transition takes a very long time sometimes. So that might be not actually enough time in the instructional lesson. And part of it is foundational because we looked at all the subgroup performance, it was low across the board. And so it was really something in tier 1 for everybody. What are we improving there? And that felt really important to name with this team.
Thank you. And then sort of as a piggyback on that, and in your instructional practices, as you said, to improve access to grade level curricula to support all students, especially emerging bilingual students. So what are those things that you're doing to make sure that emerging bilingual students are able to access grade level curricula?
Yeah, that's a great question. So partly is helping with teachers to make sure that they understand what language proficiency students, what they need, like not grouping all levels together. Additionally, so that's one part of scaffolds. We've also identified we want to increase collaborative interaction so that students are engaged. And then that also provides an opportunity as a teacher to assess, listen in. Are they understanding? Or are they quiet and compliant? Or maybe they're not compliant, but we're, making sure that we have some way to assess that they're learning. Often teachers are working their tails off, but at the same time, we need to make sure that students are also actively engaged. And to be engaged, you need to have access. So that speaks to the right amount of scaffolds. Something that we're really trying to find is making sure there's that right amount, that next step, the next language proficiency level without over scaffolding as well. And that's something that comes with a lot of coaching and feedback and practice. So that's one piece. And, we're utilizing part of that, the district lesson plan, and trying out some of those pieces as part of our major improvement strategy too, activating prior knowledge and also collaborative interaction. So those are some of the pieces that we have.
And you mentioned that you're doing groupings. Are those groupings happening within classrooms, within grade levels, both?
Yeah, I'll let Laura share a little more about that.
Sure. So we're looking at grouping students. We are looking at what are their needs, and it's mostly like within a classroom, a teacher's doing that. And then we have interventionists that also provide pull-out support, and that happens at a grade level. So it's both.
And thank you. I have a question for you on your Lectora results especially about the beginning of the year to end of the year, and like first grade beginning of the year was 36%, and then the first grade end of the year was lower. And I'm not seeing that on this slide of how I just copied, but there was a couple instances where, so the beginning of the year, first grade was 36%, and the end of year for first grade was 15%. Can you explain what's happening there?
I can explain a little bit. I think what we're getting is the cohort. Is that what we show? So this, if we look at under lectura, this year's kindergartners, 30%, were at grade level or above when we entered. And then, the end of year, like the next column is our first grade cohort. So they had, end of year was 84%.
I see.
Entered first grade. So we're noticing there is some summer slide happening. We also measures change a little bit from grade level to grade level for doubles and lectura. There's less more, like it gets more advanced in terms of the testing as well, rather from isolated sounds to like reading a passage. So that kind of shows how the cohort.
Yeah, first year, beginning of year 2025 is different from the first grade end of year 24-25.
Yes, because it's the kindergarten cohort that moved up to first grade now, and that beginning of year is for the 25-26 school year.
Yeah, the first line is our current kindergartners and the second line is our last year kindergartners are now first graders.
Mhm. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Great. Catherine?
Thank you both for taking the time to be here on a late evening. And I know you have to be back to work in the morning. So I appreciate you providing us with a robust UIP. I think that you really laid out a great plan here. And I'm excited to see the shifts in data culture that it looks like you are prepared to tackle and take on and bring into your schools or into your school. I don't have any specific questions. Just know that we are here supporting however we can. And as Director DeFridi said, if there's something that we can do to help as a board, please don't hesitate to funnel it up the proper channels. I guess it's the opposite of funnel. Is it funnel? I don't know. But get it to us. And it's funny because we're like going off the board now, but those of us that remember a time when we didn't get these UIPs and how important they are. And so every time we get them to review, I'm very appreciative that we're taking the time to do this and naming our problems, because I really believe that without naming them, we can't solve for them. So thank you both.
Okay. Jasmine?
Hey team, so sorry I couldn't be there tonight to thank you guys for all your hard work. I wanted to ask a couple questions. I know it wasn't too long ago that we had you guys present something similar to the board when we had to do an improvement plan for GSES. I just wanted to check in. Did we by any chance use that document as a starting point or as like a something that we've worked on in the past? Was that document reviewed in creating this one?
Which document?
The previous improvement plan for GSES.
The UIP for 2022.
Yes, 2022.
I mean, because it was so long ago, I think this was really more iterations of planning from their work with the turnaround network. And built on and collaboratively built this year, sorry, at the end of last spring and then this year. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, I wanted to know if that document was referred to in any sense in creating this one.
The 2022 UIP.
The improvement plan that was presented to the board.
Right. I don't think we specifically referenced that just because it was 3 years ago.
Okay. And the reason I ask, well, I guess I'll ask my follow-up question. I wanted to ask the team, like, I think you guys obviously I reviewed the UIP and your addition of obviously bringing it forward during your FAB meetings and using that as the place to hold accountability on giving the community, your school community, keeping them up to date. I just wanted to check in. Is there a goal for the GSES team for the following FAB meeting on expectations on how many families you guys will have present?
Our goal is to always increase how many families are coming and at least maintain. And so I felt like we had a really good meeting where our families' voices were heard, and I know that makes people want to come back. And so the group that was there has agreed to the next 3 dates, and we will extend that to our broader community always. But if we at least can have these 9 families that represent a diverse group of our student population, then I think we have the right people giving feedback.
Well, and the thing is, I really want to push the team. Like, I think it's great that that you guys are being intentional about inviting families and being specific of, having teachers recommend who should attend. But I do want to sort of mention that I think one of the pushes that we had that first UIP, that first go around, was parent involvement and engagement. And I would just say similar for this UIP, for this improvement plan, that same push I think should be noted of, yes, 9 families is great, but you guys, GSES is such I think has so many families that really want to participate and has such good family engagement. So I would just encourage you guys to maybe add a metric for where you guys want to be at your next FAB. And thank you, team, for all your work.
Yeah, can I just quickly respond to that? So even though we did not have great attendance at that family advisory board, 2 nights later on the 25th, we hosted our back to school night, which we called Popsicles in Progress, because kids will get their parents there if there's a popsicle at the end. And that went really well. We shared real-time data with families and gave them strategies and games and things to do with their kids at home. And we had 59% of our families come that night.
Excellent.
That
Good
was
job.
awesome.
Can I comment just one more? Sure. It'll be very brief. Oh, no, you didn't go. Go ahead.
Oh, I cede my 2 minutes to you, Stacy.
No.
No, I didn't have any specific questions. My colleagues asked really good questions, and I am grateful to you all for coming. We actually don't hear from schools that often in these meetings, so it's really nice to see your face and for you to be here and present on this plan, which I can tell has you've put a lot of work into it, and it seems like you're ready to get moving on it. So, and I would like to ask Stacy if she has something else to say.
Yeah, thank you. We included this in the memo, but I think it's important because it's not actually a category in the UIP, but contextual factors that are really important to consider here in the team. And the improvement in the panorama survey data from staff was between 9 to 30 points, which is really significant. The student attendance has improved from 92% to 93.26%. And we all know even like half a percentage point is very challenging to increase. So, and then a big thing I think is the staff retention. From year to year, this team, Laura and Courtney both have led the team really well just in the past year, which was pretty tumultuous in the last couple of years. But the staff retention is almost 100%. And one teacher who is returning was a former GSES longtime staff member who was gone for a couple of years and is returning. And that's really remarkable. And I think really poises the school in a place to really move forward. And I just wanted to make sure I highlight those. I know it's in the memo too, but that it speaks to the leadership, the engagement, the relationships they built with the families as well. And that's worth noting. And we already talked about access. So just wanted to put that in there.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, are there 5 minutes of open discussion? Okay, hearing none. Are there any intervening motions to amend? Can you please call the vote?
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director Titler.
Aye.
Good.
Great. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
The next business in order is board appreciations. And since we also have an executive session in a minute, I would encourage my colleagues to be grateful but brief in the next session.
Can I go first?
Yes, please.
Sure. I don't have any updates. I'm just deep into campaigning, as you all know. And just want to tell everyone to vote on November 4th. Appreciations. I wanted to give an appreciation to the BES staff who hosted us today for a visit, the teachers that welcomed us into the classrooms, and the crew that was out gardening and harvesting food for the cafeteria. And especially to Desiree Pimentel, who is the outdoor education coordinator with BEF, who makes all of that happen for the kids. And that's all.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay.
I'd like to offer appreciation for the transportation department. I know they're continually up against challenges for staffing, for resources, and they've continued to be accessible to parents and reactive and helpful whenever they can. So just a deep appreciation for transportation lead and staff.
Thank you. Kenny?
I would like to give a few shout outs. One to Chief Chacoin, who was shouted out last night at the BEF forum of doing a great job. And I would like to second that of what a tremendous job she's doing for us. I would like to thank the principals at CMS and Roaring Fork High School for hosting us and also for their passion and integrity and forward thinking point of views that they have. And the schools are lucky for such great leadership that they have with Lindsay Henschel and Michael Logan. So thank you to those schools for hosting us. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of us that was in our work session today for some difficult conversations and for hanging in there.
Jasmine?
Thanks, team. I just want to give a shout out and a gratitude to our team and to the union for hosting a forum a week ago. We appreciate the collaboration and just want to give a shout out to everyone who attended and thank you, Director After, for stepping up tonight. I appreciate it.
Finally, I would like to thank the team at Bridges for hosting a school visit last week. I always really enjoy visiting the school and hearing from the leadership and seeing what the students are up to. And I got to quickly observe a great lesson in financial literacy. And I wanted to thank all the candidates who are running for school board and the teams that they've built around them, which is a lot of volunteers putting in a lot of time. And I love seeing the passion in the community around this important election. So that's it for now. Okay. The next business in order. The next business in order is an executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024F to discuss personnel matters, specifically the superintendent's annual review. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
I move that the Board of Education move into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-64024F to discuss personnel matters, specifically the superintendent's annual review.
Do I have a second?
I second.
The board will now move into executive session. The time is 8:46 p.m. It is 10:04 PM and the board has returned from executive session. If there is no further business and there is no objection, the meeting will be adjourned. It is 10:04 PM.